Hi, everyone. Welcome to this special joint episode of Carry On Friends Style and Vibes and Reels and Riddims. And we are coming together for this joint episode to discuss the Bob Marley One Love movie. And it is causing quite a stir on the internets. And we've assembled a group of passionate guests, family members of the Breadfruit Media family, audience members to come in and have a very poignant, educated, and we're going to touch on the mix up too that is circulating, but we're going to have a very festive conversation on this movie. Michaela, welcome.
Yes, so we already anticipate this being a very long conversation. So to be clear and transparent, it's going to be a two-part episode so that you guys can really get the in-depth understanding of our position as well as our amazing guests. So as Carrie said, the Bob Marley One Love movie released on February 14th on Valentine's Day. That is no coincidence. That was planned from a marketing perspective. Produced by Ronaldo Marcus Green, who did King Richard, through Paramount Films in collaboration with the Marley family and a host of writers. It stars Kingsley Ben Adir, who played Malcolm X in One Night in Miami, and he plays Bob Marley. Lashana Lynch plays Rita Marley, and she was in Woman King and Captain Marvel. We'll get into their backgrounds because we got to get into that. But like Carrie said, the release definitely sparked a lot of interest, conversations, commentary, and as Jamaican Caribbean people, I forget to get on top of things. More time, I'm sure these are WhatsApp conversations, dinner table conversations. So una pre the family conversation panda podcast episode. Yeah. So without further ado, Carrie, bring in the guests. Bring in the guests. Roll them in. Roll them in. Cool.
All right, so joining us today, no stranger to Carry On Friends or Style and Vibes, is our co-host with the mostest, Mr. Chris Williams. Welcome to the show. Purr, 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 purr.
Purr, 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 purr. What's up, y'all?
And also joining us is our wonderful audience member of Carry On Friends and supporter. Big up yourself, Indira. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, everybody.
And also another person we just featured on the podcast and a supporter already of Carry On Friends and Reels and Riddims is Mikey T. Big up yourself. Give them the bass.
Well, on, everybody. Hi.
All right. And then with Goodisha, with Chefisha, Jendayi. Welcome to the podcast. She is family to me and Michaela. Welcome, Jen.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
Nice. And then we have with other Breadfruit Media family and also a frequent appearer on the shows them, Alexandria of the Strictly Facts podcast. Big up yourself, Goody. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me, Carrie.
All right. So I'm going to kick it off. Actually, I'm going to throw it back to you, Michaela, for guide we properly.
Yeah, no problem. So we have been seeing a lot of the promotion leading up to the film itself, and the conversation started way before the movie release. So Chris, mega dash to you to kind of hear what was your initial reaction to seeing the pre rollout before the movie.
So I was excited because, like it was about time we see this story, right? So I was looking forward to it, but I was a little bit taken aback by the selection, right? Because I wanted to see a Jamaican playing Bob Marley. So, I knew Kingsley Ben Adir. I've been watching him as an actor. I'm a Marvel fan, so I saw him also in this Disney flick where he played a villain against Samuel Jackson, Nick Fury of S.H.I.E.L.D. So it was really cool. I know the guy, I know the actor, right? So I know he's talented, but I just didn't see him as Marley. fine. I was gonna go. I went into it with an open mind, and now we'll talk about that later. But my reaction was initially one of excitement. Looking forward to it, just concerned about the casting.
Indira and Mikey, you guys go ahead next.
I was very excited as well. I could probably say this now, but I actually was able to do a pre-screening for this movie months before it came out. So I was really excited to be able to do that, because sometimes it's kind of hard to get those. And then, of course, I had to go back again with my mom and my brother this past Sunday to watch it again, and I was just very excited to see it twice.
I was very excited to hear about it. Born in New York to Jamaican parents. I remember being shocked that Bob Marley was dead, the way that I learned about Bob Marley. So growing up with that idea of that legacy, I was very excited about the film, and I honestly thought it was long overdue. And I understood the business impact that this film was going to have when we talk about mainstream production. So I was able to watch it 3 times as of now, and I'll probably go another 2.
I use a support. I mean, all of us here is doing our Jamaican duty to go out and watch the film, not film, the film at least
film.
one time, right? You break the record and you go about 5 times. All right, respect Drew, respect Drew. Jen, what did you think about the film before its release?
I can't say that I was excited. I mean, I'm a Bob fan, grew up on Bob, we love Bob. But I can't say I was excited. I was more nervous about the movie. Like, please let this be well done. Like, even though I know the family is fully involved, please don't let it be corny. And just wondering if it was gonna have enough, and but I don't think I was excited. I was kind of like, oh boy, please, I beg.
Alexandria.
Yeah, I think that's.
I feel it. I feel it. Alexandria.
I definitely was excited. I was really proud of the rollout that they did in Kingston, right? Them could have just go Miami and gone to London and wherever, New York, them big place there. But, to see the rollout and the attention that they gave to Kingston, especially with the launch, Bear People forward, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, it was just a lot for, what we always consider a very small place, but a tremendous impact. And I think that, to me, I was very proud of.
I think I went through all the motions of all of you all at the same time, and then I immediately went to Google. I'm like, let's see who's part of this project, because if the family is not involved, I don't know how this is gonna go. I'm sure, and even Ziggy in his promo run, he talked about a lot of people's interest in depicting his father in this way. And 2 things that he said that I think were important is he is of age and has the maturity of a full grown person to really take the project on and be really into the entire process, and it allowed him to and I think that's very poignant too, because had he tried to do this maybe 10-20 years ago, I'm sure every time he sees people, they have a different story to talk about his dad, and he has his own memories. It drums up all these entire emotions going through the entire project. So I do think, after kind of viewing some of his responses, that he was very intentional about what came to life on screen, and I definitely appreciate that. But beyond all the niceties, there was a lot, even around the press run, like, of where they did, screenings. They did it in Jamaica, they did it in London, they did it in LA. There was a lot of promotional activity. There were screens and filters on. Noticeably missing was New York. in Miami, like you mentioned, Alexandria, and for such huge hubs of Jamaican culture, I think that was surprising to me, to not see those two major cities as part of the rollout. But I did appreciate the let's start in Jamaica first and then kind of make our rounds. But there was a lot of other controversy that we saw online before even seeing the movie. Did that sway your opinion or views before you saw the film? So I'm gonna go to Carrie and then Alexandria. I want you to kind of hop in.
The level of misinformation and the level of controversy, and I say misinformation because there was legit misinformation. Like, we got information that there were no Jamaicans on the album, right? Or the soundtrack, right? Whereas the artwork that we saw really only did the top billing of like crossover artists like Casey Musgrave, and it did like Daniel Caesar. But it wasn't until after like Shensia has a song on it. So the statement that there's no Jamaican on it was lies. But we're so emotionally vested in this thing. Anything anybody posts, it was just like, oh my gosh, what it means to know you couldn't find no Jamaican to sing a song. So I feel like there was a level of misinformation or not enough research or whatever it was, but that really took me from being and anticipating it to like, boy, I'm gonna really care about it at this point. I don't even, I'm just going to do my national duty, my duty as a Jamaican to go watch it, and that's it. I don't like it just came to that point where I was just like, yo, with a straight face, I'm gonna go watch it. But regardless of what was happening, I just knew I was going to watch it. The statement about, no, Ziggy couldn't find a Jamaican to play Bob. I mean, I had coworkers who are not black, who are not Caribbean, who asked me about that, right? And so that played into how I was feeling about this and the representation. So the conversations in social media, misinformation or preliminary information that, people didn't really dig deep into, and for myself didn't dig deep into, because I just got this and just shared it, really played into how I was receptive to what was happening. And I know a few people, I shared those posts. So I know social media and how people were reacting, and I had to be intentional to say, you know what? Later for social media, a lot of people you here know that, once after a while, I was like, I don't want to see no social media posts. I'm going to watch it, and I don't want to really kill my vibe about it. And yeah, that's it. So I'm curious to hear anyone else's experience with the social media, the controversy, people opinion, no Jamaican. And that's the other thing too. I may be jumping ahead. While Kingsley Ben Adir is British and he's of Caribbean heritage, he's not Jamaican. But when people said there's no Jamaican, that's a misnomer that we have to correct. You have Jamaican born actors and you have actors born to Jamaican parents, just like how Mikey T, Michaela, Alexandria, Jendayi, you're born to Jamaican parents. You are Jamaican. And my issue with people is that we can't we can't choose when we want to big up. Yeah, Sherry Lee Ralph, who is not Jamaican. She's born to Jamaican parents. So when it's convenient, we say big up Sherry Lee
All
Ralph.
right, we can collectively come off a mute and say pew 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 pew.
Yes, I'm all for that. We can't take it.
Bop, bop, bop.
I get that a lot of times. You're not really Jamaican.
No,
Oh, I'm
no,
sorry.
you cannot pick and choose. So if you're looking for Jamaican born, say one thing, but you can't say they're not Jamaican. You have people who are Jamaican born and those who born to Jamaican parents, and all of us here collectively say, yeah, you're born to Jamaican parents, you're Jamaican. So this idea that there's no Jamaican part of it, we need to clarify that and say you have Jamaican born and those who born to Jamaican parents. And we're gonna move off on that because everybody is saying Kingsley did a good job. I feel I felt that they went with Kingsley for the likeness of Bob, I don't necessarily think that he gave the best performance. I feel somebody else could have given a better performance who was in the show, but I'm gonna give other people time. I rest my case until the next argument. Mikey, go on talk.
As to your point, I was born in New York, but I found out I could get my Jamaican citizenship through descent, which I was able to get, and I have my Jamaican passport. So when I land, they tell me welcome home, even though I was born in New York. So when it comes to Kingsley, and when it comes to that idea of why wasn't a Jamaican chosen to play Bob Marley, I think in the realm of art, we have to be very careful with that conversation, because the whole point of acting is taking somebody and learning and becoming that character. Are we going to, in this conversation, then typecast our Jamaican actors where it becomes, hey, there's this big role, the star is from California, and a Jamaican actor who has a perfect California accent, it becomes, oh, we can't look at you because you're not from California. Acting is the art of becoming somebody else. Has Will Smith ever been a police officer in New York who's battling aliens? Has Samuel L. Jackson ever been a house slave in the Deep South? We have to be very careful. And I think what happens is when you're putting on a production like this that costs that much money, I think you want somebody that has range. While we have great Jamaican actors, when we talk about the range of emotions that Bob Marley went into that movie, when I'm spending XYZ amount of money on a production that is supposed to bring people out of their seats and into a moment, I need to feel confidence in the range of that actor to say they can go from point A to point B naturally and take people out of their seats. So that's my opinion. Yes, we would have loved to see a Jamaican in that role, but is there evidence of a Jamaican actor that actually goes the depths? And that's what we love to see. And did it make business sense? That's just my point.
Jendayi
All right, go.
and then
Yeah, go
Chris.
on, Jen.
One thing I just need us to, or this narrative that now I feel that Ziggy is promoting, and then I feel like you co-signed it. The narrative that there's no Jamaican actors that are capable, just because you might not personally know of them, they do exist. We have it. It kind of talks down on us, like we're not able. If anybody from anywhere else is able, why are we not able? And it's not to say that someone from elsewhere can't do the role, but why can't we do the role? Something that should be so natural. Especially through COVID, the amount of phenomenal acting that I've seen on YouTube channels alone, not even big productions, with Jamaican actors with range, actors and actresses that do not even have big production budgets and are pulling off some phenomenal acting, roles. It's not fair to say maybe they don't have the resources, but if people are not giving them a chance, and we should, I'm sorry to say, but I have yet to hear someone from somewhere else other than Jamaica master the accent. It's I don't know, it's very complicated, it's hard. He didn't do an awful job. He did a good job for Bob. But why is it, I just don't understand why people keep on saying that. It's degrading to us. It's degrading to us. It belittles us. Just
So
we should have said we don't know.
One question I do have, was that the headline, or I know the answer, but that was the headline that social media kind of ran with, and we didn't get to see the depth of the entire clip of what he was referring to. So I want to give space to kind of say that. Go ahead, Chris.
So yeah, so okay, so I'm gonna come from a few different angles. So I am an actor, right? I may not be doing any work, but I studied theater, studied acting. You guys probably don't know this, Michaela Carey. Studied, have been done my little work behind the scenes. So for me, I get what you're saying, Mikey T. Acting that's what it is, right? But the thing about this Bob Marley and the Bob Marley movie is it's the Jamaican pride that's behind this makes it something that is so important for us as a nation, as a, whether you want to call it a little nation or whatever, but as a nation to be able to have something where one of us can be in the lead. And the thing that bothered me is that you have this family who I think has a responsibility to make this as genuine as possible. Take someone from our island, like Bob was uplifted and put up on a pedestal from our island to really reflect that, to be that, to emulate that. And I think it was their responsibility to do that. Now we could say I could also go back to it from a business perspective and say, well, from a business perspective, we need to put butts in the seat, so we've got to make sure we get somebody that's recognizable, that people might, but not everybody. And a lot of people don't know Kingsley Ben Adir. People know him, but he's not known worldwide. You know what I'm saying? So he's still a sort of lesser known actor, right? So we could have taken a chance on one of ours. I'm going to go back to what I remember was done when they remade Superman. That actor who played Superman way back when, nobody knew, right? And it became a huge success, right? He was a young white guy who just got catapulted to fame, right? I can't remember his name, right? It's not Henry Cavill. This is another, I want to say Brandon Ruth or something like that. I can't remember. But the bottom line is, this guy, nobody knew. And he is catapulted to fame playing Superman. We could do the same thing. We had the responsibility, the opportunity to do the same thing with this film, but for whatever reason, they chose not to. You have the brother who played Neville Garrick, for example, Sheldon Shepherd, talented actor. I saw him when he did Better Must Come. Amazing actor. He has range. He's also in Champion, which we
Purr,
could
purr,
talk
purr,
about next time.
purr.
Yeah.
He would
Like,
have
he
been a
has
better Bob
range.
Marley.
He has range. He's an
Amazing.
artist. He's a performer. He gets it. He could embody Bob, right? So it's something that, I'm not going to tear it down because this represents us, and I'm glad that this was done. But I really do hope that what will come from this is people see that we have amazing actors. We're not even going to talk. We have to talk about later, and I'm going to stop here. Juan Deja Henriquez. I mean, I hope I said his name right. But he played young Bob like, oh my God, like this kid is going places. But now shut up.
I just want to say, I want to interject. What Mikey said was a very important point that I didn't quite consider it the way you articulated, because it's a good point. And I had a point to support what you said, right? It's about becoming the character. And I felt like Sheldon Shepherd could have become the character of Bob Marley. And the example that I have was Jamie Foxx don't look like Ray. But Jamie went through a transformation that made him feel like, oh my gosh, this is Ray Charles. The same thing with Chadwick Boseman for Get Up with James Brown. So the point that you made, Mikey, I don't want to feel, I know you're not feeling with it. I felt like you made a really good point. I think what most of us are taking issue with is the statement coming from a Marley that outside to a larger culture, a white audience, they will take it as gold, as stone, that there are no Jamaican actors that are good enough to play the role. And the UK influence, I mean, most of those, like you said, most of those actors, most of the talent is coming out of the UK, right? And on a previous episode, we talked about the accent. But I see a Mikey coming. Michaela, I'll throw it back to you because you're managing, and Alexandria not talk yet.
Alexandria didn't get to share her
Yeah.
point. We didn't hear from Indira, and then we'll circle back to Mikey. Is that okay? Thumbs up, Mikey. All right. Alexandria.
I just wanted to add a point about that sort of misinformation. The issue with social media is, they're trying to get the hype and draw everybody in with the quick little 10-second bite, right? So to, not defend nobody, because in a lot of ways, I also would have loved to see a Jamaican actor play Bob, right? But the social media clip was, there are no talented Jamaicans, right? If you had watched the longer video, where Ziggy explained that, they were trying to find somebody with the pull, as both Chris, and I think Mikey also mentioned, right? That the business perspective, the not defending it, right? But if they're looking at it from, if that was their main goal, right? In trying to choose a person. But I did take issue, initially hearing that bite-sized clip, and I was like, wait, let me go and go do my due diligence and not just, run with what is immediately buzzing on social media.
Yes, I of course, I saw all the commentary about which actor they chosen and why they didn't choose one of Bob's many kids or grandkids. And they're not actors, but not to say that they can't be. Um, but yeah, I feel like it always comes down to like, it's a business, and like the studios want to make money, and they rarely, not rarely, they have such a hard, they have a hard time understanding that we can sell films. And like even with like big, I can't even big, even like big films that came out, it was still risky for them. They're not sure if this is going to make money, and then we show up and we sell, we make they, it's like millions and millions of dollars. And but they still feel like, oh, black audiences won't turn up for this, and that's always in the back of their mind, although we know better. But that type of mindset is always like frustrating for when it comes to like our films. So it's like I see kind of why they decided to go with this actor, but I'm sure they're, like the actor that you mentioned, I looked him up because I didn't know, I'm really bad with names, so I looked him up, and yeah, he would have been perfect as well.
So I want to piggyback. Why do you think the studio? Because everyone's like, it's a great production. I don't know if everybody was expecting subpar production from Paramount. Like I wasn't expecting it, right? I mean, business aside, them they would have put money in it. But why was the industry not expecting people to go out and watch this? Because it shattered expectations, and based on the dailies it continues to be number one. So Indira, why do you think the studios are, even when it's our stories, because we the beg for our stories and we get our stories, why do they still feel like we won't show up for our stories and then feel surprised that ignorance when we show up? Like, I don't understand that. Could you possibly share why you think that's the case?
I mean, they, it all comes down to them just being, you know, I don't know, racist, prejudice. I don't know which is the better term for this, but it's like they have no faith in our talent. They have no faith in our stories. I mean, I see it in the industry that I work in. That's like there was a big superhero film that came out, and even with that film, they thought, they weren't sure if they were going to make the money that they thought they would make from this film, if they were just going to break even or anything like that. But we showed out, and we showed out twice, and it's just, it's just how they think. I don't know. It's very annoying.
Jen, I see you.
Yeah, I don't think it's us that they're worried about showing up. It's them that they're worried about showing up. I think they're worried about white people showing up to the theater. Now, if you look at Kingsley, aesthetically, he resembles Bob Marley. Say for instance, it was him versus Sheldon. He looks more like Bob Marley. He has that, kind of a mixed light skin look like Bob. And I think even for Ziggy, because I don't know, obviously Paramount has some kind of say, but who's to say that the main people that had the most influence were not the Marleys? and they looked at him. They didn't have the main influence. Ziggy agreed with it, though. Did they not agree with what they agreed? But
Yes.
I don't see, like, for instance, Sheldon. He doesn't look like the pretty boy persona that they like. It's just, even for instance, how Bob was super talented, but we know the way he looked was a big part of it. If he was some dark skinned, strong African feature black man with locks. But people, once they put the Bob Marley on there, I'm sorry. Honestly, I think whoever they casted, people were going to go out of curiosity. They could have cast anyone. Any light-skinned man, brown-skinned Rasta man, they could have cast, and people would have went just out of mere curiosity. But I think the main people they were worried about coming to the box office are white people, not black people.
All right, so that's a good segue for Michaela and I to jump in. So we've covered the casting, and I wanted to share some
Well,
research.
hold on. Let's back up
What?
on the casting, because we're not even talking about Lashana.
Yeah, we're gonna go to that in a little bit, but we want to set up the production, right? So let's circle back, right? So this movie, the Marley movie, was as Horain Henry in a Carry On Friends podcast, he says that there are multiple people that put together a show. So Paramount was involved, and Plan B Productions, right? And Plan B is a production company that initially started with Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston. Jennifer sold her stake in Plan B. And so Plan B Entertainment, as executive producer, and Indira could talk about that, they were the ones responsible for going out and to try to get the funding for the film. And so as executive producer, the first person on that list was what's your name again? I'm gonna go find it. Dee Dee Gardner and Jeremy Kleiner was on there. And they're the ones that have the P.G.A after their name. And Ziggy has that as well because he was on set and part of the production a good amount of the times. So let me just run down some important people upon the cast and upon the crew, including non-acting crew, and then we get into Lashana. So we already, Dee Dee Gardner is producer, Jeremy Kleiner is producer, Ziggy, executive producer, Orly Marley, executive producer, Sidella and Rita also got producer credits. The Faye Ellington, who we grew up knowing, she is credited as a dialect coach, and she also was the announcer at the concert scene. We have Stephen Marley is music producer credits. Harvey Mason Jr. has executive music producer credit. And the reason why Harvey Mason Jr. is important because Harvey Mason Jr. is associated with the Grammys, right? So he is what I can't remember in position, but he went up on the stage a couple weeks ago for the Grammys.
He's like the head of the Grammys, no?
He's the head of the Grammys. If you watch Champion, Sissy, who is the woman in Champion, Natalie Thompson, she has production manager credits on this because she's part of the Jamaican unit. The casting director is also the casting director that was on Black Cake. Brad Pitt is executive producer. Who else? And then the actors. We have Nadine Marshall, who played Aria in Champion, played young Sidella Marley, as in Bob's mother, not his daughter, Sidella. We talked about Sheldon. There is Anna Sharee Blake, aka Savannah, who plays Judy Mowat. And then we also have Naomi Cohen, who plays Marcia Griffiths. We had Quan, which Chris mentioned, and of course Lashana. Those are like names that we know. And also appearing, there's a lot of people who've made appearance in the movie. So we saw Muta Baruka had a few appearances in the movie, and so we can get into the characters from there. I just wanted to set that up for everybody. So if you're wondering why was Brad Pitt at the premiere, he's an executive producer. His production company helped to finance the film along with Paramount and whatever the Marley's going. Run it co-host.
Find the money and find the money if you get it done. I think Kingsley did a good job, right? But I also think that that kind of ties into my overall feeling of the movie. I do think I do think it wasn't necessarily the acting, but the delivery and the writing. I think that there were some things that were missing for me. Like I think they got the emotional connection, but I wanted to walk away from the movie like I walked away from Selena or Ray or Ali or Get Up. I wanted to walk away looking for the catalog, feeling like I have jumped into an era that I completely missed and would have transported myself back to just experience that. And I think that everything to me, including the acting, including the accents, including the delivery, was good, but it wasn't great. Mikey.
Oh, I didn't know if Carrie wanted to say something.
Yo, oh, me go jump in and then me go manage the chat. No, I agree with you, Michaela. I felt like I walked away watching a dramatic, a dramatization of I Shot the Sheriff, a documentary. I felt like that's what I watched. Like you said, the writing was just weak. The story was weak. It didn't pull me in. And that was it. It wasn't the acting. It was the story. It just wasn't strong enough. It just did not pull me in. And I literally felt like, uh, um, I watch a lot of documentaries. This is why we are doing this. Bob Marley has maybe one of the most he has the most documentaries on his life than anybody else in the world, right? And I've watched at least 8 of them. And so I come with knowledge about stories, but telling and fictionalizing aspects of the story. And I think that's what's missing, right? They were focused on telling a true story, but there are aspects of a true story that you need to fictionalize in order to bring in, because even Ziggy as his son, or they're not able to really convey, because the person who they're telling the life of, they're not around to fill in the gap. So I agree with Mikhail on that. Mikey and then Jen.
Oh, okay. There were 2 points that I wanted to get into. There was a mention of the accent, the Jamaican accent. And I think what I this is I don't know, I'm not in any of these board meetings or anything, but I think one of the things that they worry about is getting lost. If you have too authentic of an accent, and then they worry about having to create subtitles for a film. You have a lot, like, at the end of the day, Jamaicans really, when they get deep into their character, when they get deep into their accent, they can lose a lot of people. And that confusion in a movie theater, when you can't rewind, has the potential to lose somebody. But it's not me, because guess what? I'm gonna get it. But at the end of the day, in making a film for a widescreen audience, those are the small things that they have to think about without adding subtitles. And when it comes to the casting choice, I wonder if the fact that the UK has a very huge support of Caribbean content. We see a lot of movies, we see a lot of films and series coming from the UK that are Caribbean based and Caribbean centered. Did that play in Paramount's decision? Like, I don't know how big Kingsley, or I'm sorry, the young lady who played Rita, I don't know how big they are in the UK. Did that play a role in their decision to say, hey, they'll bring in the seats definitely over in the UK? Though I don't know.
So one of the questions that they asked during the pre-screening that I went to, and they asked it a couple of times, was the accent hard to understand? And I remember I told Carrie Ann about that a couple months ago, and to me it seems like they want to like make the accent like palatable, right? They want to like water it down a bit, so that way, like you were saying, like they want to make sure they don't have to um add in any like subtitles or anything like that, or not sub it. And I remember that there was like a couple guys behind me that I heard them like talk low about how like some parts of it they couldn't really understand. And I'm sure like on that, because they give you a phone to answer the questions, I'm sure on the phone they probably put that. But it was an interesting question. It's like, I wonder if they even ask these questions at other types of films with with characters who have accents. I mean, for me, I can understand it. My parents are Caribbean, but for non-Caribbean viewers, I don't know.
I think a lot of people would be surprised to know how much they really do understand, especially the fans of Bob Marley, because Bob Marley was not speaky spokey, and these people watch Bob Marley's interviews. If there's one Jamaican person that they understand, is Bob Marley. Now, Kingsley did a great job. Honestly, to me, he did a better job than Lashana, and she has Jamaican parents. The man took his time with his. I said, you know what? He sound like Bob. Sound like Bob. You know, I don't know if he was playing another Jamaican person, but he's specifically studying Bob, so he got it. You know, he did well. Lashana, I said, damn. I need, for Jamaican parents, we need like a foundation, like a school for the children of Jamaican parents, so that we can properly pick up the dialect or something. I don't know. Or something. I don't know, but that she was hard. It was difficult for me. But as what you were saying, I felt like a lot of things were left out of the movie. It felt lacking. I felt disappointed. I was like, oh, this is nice, but I felt disappointed. I felt like there could be more. Some characters didn't even speak. There were some people that I know were supposed to be in the movie and their parts got cut. And I'm sad about that, because how do you talk about Bob's journey without them? How do you really, like, the lead up? And you mention them, so it's kind of feisty to mention them and don't really show that they were integral in the journey. You know, you can't put everything in a movie, but there's more that they made it just, it just kind of, it's watered down. And even the white people and every other people who are not Black, you know, other people who aren't Jamaican know that it's not, that it could have had more. You know, it could have had some more to it. So I just wish they would have gave us, you know, some more and really show us Kingsley's range to really portray, because it honestly, it was like a little summary and barely anybody spoke. Naomi said like 2 lines. Savannah did not say a thing. I don't recall her saying a word. One time I just looked at her and said, oh yeah, she kind of looked like Judy in that scene, but she ain't said nothing all now. I mean, I like that I heard Hector talking, you know. But yeah, it was just, I fell asleep at one point, doze off, honestly. And I didn't expect that for myself, honestly.
All right. So Jen said she drop asleep. All right. Wait. So I'm gonna get to a couple points. So I agree with Lashana on the accent, and what Kingsley did was he was very intentional. So Alexandria, I want you to pop in because this guest was on your show, Dr. Farquharson, who is the head of the Jamaica Language Institute, who's doing a lot of work to recognize our language as a language. So Jamaican patois, whatever, is a language. He actually went to the Language Institute and they taught him the dialect and they taught him how to remember. I said that Faye Ellington was a dialect coach. Specifically, he had his own dialect coach, so he was more conscious of having the language in there. And I want Alexandria to talk about that, and then Indira, you can tell us all the things then cut out of it from where you see in the pre-screen to what we saw live. But and then we're gonna open it up a little bit with us. I try and make sure so we get the points them, you know.
Go back to Chris. If we circle back,
Yeah.
After Indira, Chris.
Alexandria,
Indira, Chris.
Yeah, I definitely will say I have to big up the accent on Kingsley's part. I think that was something when we all heard the movie where that's always the trepidation around when we're in a movie where I said, lad, I don't know what them are gonna sound like because them not sound like we. But Kingsley was very intentional. Had studied at the Jamaica Language Unit at UWI Mona in Kingston, and I think that definitely gives credit not only to his dedication towards the role, but again, why we think it definitely excelled in particular ways in terms of his accent and portrayal of Bob.
Um, they did shoot. They did have a lot of scenes when Bob was like, I guess, was he like a teenager when he had went to that recording studio? So they did cut out a few more of those scenes from that, and then I know he had mentioned there was like that. You remember that scene where he and Rita were, I guess this when they were in Paris, and she mentioned his other bandmates. There was a scene with them, I guess when when they broke up, there was that scene that they cut out. And I thought that was interesting that they left that out. And what else? There was more scenes with him and Rita when they were younger that they also cut out as well. I mean, I guess it would have made the movie much longer than what it already was, but it was interesting that they made those decisions.
Before I go to you, Chris, I think overall, I think them choosing that specific timeline was probably problematic because what I didn't like was how they did flashbacks in it as opposed to just set up Bob from little bit coming up and then going to where he is. Doing the flashbacks weren't very helpful at all because it felt out of place. People wanted to understand Bob as a young man, this half white person, in Jamaica to when he got to, and, again, cutting out Peter and Bunny, who Bunny is technically a second cousin. So he's family other than a
Technically a
bandmate.
brother.
Yeah,
Technically a brother. Yeah.
yeah. I mean, technically a
They
brother,
have a
but
sister in common. They have a
yes,
sister in common. A
exactly. So
brother.
cutting that out just didn't really make sense because you assume that everybody know who Bob Marley is. People know the name, but they don't always know the story. They now watch documentary like us. So I thought that was a missed opportunity. Chris, run it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna what you what you said, right? What you said. So 100%, like there was the movie was about an hour and 48 minutes. We saw Ray was like 3 hours, right? I mean, like they could have made this a 3 hour movie, and trust me, they would not have lost the audience. All they need to have was great writers. All they needed to have was great writers, a great story, and in 3 hours, nobody would have batted an eye. People would have sat in those seats to watch this movie because everybody loved Bob. Bob translates to you could live in Iceland, Reykjavik, or wherever, Bob. Everybody knows Bob. So my thing is, an opportunity was missed as far as I'm concerned. But listen, I'm not making the movie. I don't own it. It's not mine. We're just talking about what if this were done differently. I think it was a missed opportunity. And I'm going to touch on Paramount. Like Paramount, I don't think clearly understands. I don't think they have anybody on their team that understood how to market this film properly. Okay,
Me
because
go come off a
tons
mute.
of
None of these studios no know how to do it.
when
Period. Period.
especially when it comes to us, okay? Because no matter what you want to say, while Bob is for the world, this is a story specifically about us, for us. And this is why it's important for us to really control our stories and the way they are told. And I don't know if the Marley family really control it the way it should have been controlled. I just don't. Am I wrong for saying that? Hey, if I am, tough luck. My talk over field. But yeah, go on. Yeah, sorry. That's it.
Mikey, we're gonna come back to you. Michaela, what's the most? Yo,
Jen, I thought
the
same
chat
exact thing.
festive.
The chat festive. We can't even get to the chat. But Jen, I thought the same exact thing. I said they probably spent more time with Kingsley and the accent. And I saw an interview with him when he was on the Breakfast Club, and he talked about, he's like, he asked them, he's like, "Are you sure you want me? Go back and find someone else, and then come. If you feel that I'm the right person, then fine." But he was very intentional. So I felt like and that I saw that interview after seeing the movie, and I really thought that he conveyed the emotions of Bob. I looked at him a few times and heard I connected what I saw of Bob Marley in documentaries to him. So he captured the character beautifully. The music for me fell so flat. I think that the music, like, it wasn't it's so integral to who Bob was, is, today, will be. And I just felt that it was like when they were in the studio and he's like, "Give me a one drop, my," like, I just didn't find that connection, and it wasn't hard hitting. Like, I remember the scene from even in Ray, and like I said, Selena, the music scenes there, and even when Chadwick was in the hotel and he was working with his band, and you saw the foot stomp and you heard the click clack and you heard the vibration of the drums and the horns coming in and the guitars, and it just, like, you felt like getting up and dancing. I wanted us to be in there talking about Rastafari, like do the answer, the call and response, sing along
Ja.
to this song, Rastafari. You know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of excitement that I really wanted to feel in terms of the connection to the movie itself. So I think Kingsley did a beautiful job. And like Jen said, it really it almost did a disservice to him. Yeah, Straight Outta Compton, same thing. It almost did a disservice to how good of a, like, job he did capturing that role, and the writing and just falling flat. I think Lashana, from the moment she spoke, it just felt it like something was off. And Rita, if you watch, I also read, um I read Rita Marley's biography, called No Women No Cry. So a lot of the movie, if you read that book, it was almost like they were capturing Bob's response to the moments in that book. So I highly recommend that you read that book, listen to it, whatever it is, because every single moment that was in her book, it was almost like we were seeing Bob respond to those moments as a person, because she talks about all of it, the how they met, the circumstances, her being in the studio pregnant and him telling her to go home, and how she got shot, and how she kind of transpired through the struggle of remaining in his legacy, and how she dealt with all the women. And the movie alludes to her having her own man too, and she's just like, man, like, so if you read that book, you understand the character that Lashana was filling. But for a lot of the public, especially if you haven't read that book, you're really getting exposed to the power of Rita Marley, and the influence that she had, and the connection that they truly had. They were both seen as like outcasts, and that's kind of how they grew their love. And he had such an admiration and respect, and so did she. So much so that she mentions it in the film, the message became the messenger. And she, to this day, her family kind of still alludes to that legacy in honing in Bob's name.
Yo, Mikey just dropped something at the chat. Mikey, come true with the chat. Mikey, come true with what you're saying at the
Yeah,
chat.
no, I said they spoke more about Rita stepping out of the marriage, the one man that she had, than they spoke about
Yes.
Bob's womanizing, which was strange. And I only say that because I watched Ziggy Marley's interview and he said, listen, this film is a deep dive into Bob the person, not Bob the icon. And I was like, this film is a deep dive into Bob, my daddy. It looked like Ziggy was Like, because he was 12 years old when his father died. And what do you really know about your father, your parents, like, Tanya Picnic Players? Like, what do you really know about your father's life at 12 years old to say that you're going to convey a deep dive? You don't know the real story because you were a child. And I think that's one of the things that let me down, because it's like sometimes we talk about our legacies and our heroes and they seem so perfect, and they make people feel like I can't tell my story because there's so much wrong with my life. If they would have taken that opportunity to humanize Bob, that would like, come on, like, you have so many, you have so many children, so many outside relations. Why? What was it? Was it a deep self-hatred in yourself that you felt nobody could love you because you were half white, half black, and you went through that in Jamaica? And that's what I was looking for. And I'll say one thing about Kingsley that I think was very interesting about his accent. He said when he was going through the tapes of Bob's interviews that he received, he said he could understand 70% of what Bob said. And he said there are certain things. He called all his Jamaican friends and was like, "Do you know what he's saying here?" And they're like, "Nah." And he called the Marley family. He was like, "Hey, can you tell me what your father's saying here?" And they were like, "I just saw Bob talk." And I will say Kingsley did something very intentional, which I don't know if anybody can tell me what he said when they went to perform and Rita came back. I don't want to say too much, but when she came after she was shot and she came back.
Spoilers. Nobody ever, when anybody watching this, just expect spoilers. So talk the show.
Okay, so after the shooting and the attempt on Bob's life, shout out Michael Ward, Jamie from Top Boy. I have to, um, he, born in Spanish Town, went to England when he was 4, but when he hugged her, he said something to her, and I watched the movie 3 times. And if I tell you I know what words Kingsley said to that woman, I'd be lying. If anybody can tell me, if anybody's heard it and understood. But when he hugged her, he said, "Rita," she said, "Oh, I signed myself out of the hospital." And he said something to her and he hugged her. And I was like, what? It sounded like Kingsley did that on
I know what
purpose.
he said.
What did he say? Please tell me. No, please tell
He
me. I
said
want to
he
know.
said you're something else. He said, "Woman, you're something else."
I
He said
don't
you're
know.
really something
Sounded
else.
so
Yeah.
off to me inside the thing, and I wonder if he did that on purpose,
You
because
gotta go back to the Marley school.
when he talked about studying Bob's linguistics, which I found very interesting because I never thought about it. He's like, "Listen, Bob was born in the country, and say then in the country, grew up in Trenchtown, and then traversed through Europe. So while Bob had a Jamaican accent, there are certain words and there are certain things that were kind of unique to Bob, which you do see in American culture, which I do see through a lot of Jamaicans that I know that come up here, and when they go back home, they're like, "Listen, I know you've been to foreign," and they're like, "Wait, how did you know?" One of the things that one of my friends said to me is Jamaicans back home really don't use the F word. They don't use it in conversation. But he says that the guy's experiences, when a lot of them come back, they use that a lot more than normally when they grow up in Jamaica, which is something that I don't know, that I find very interesting when it comes to dialect and the morphing of two different dialects and cultures.
The other thing is that what people, and I just talked about it in the interview with Andrew of Brata Production. He said we used Bob as the same thing. Bob had the country speak. I know this because I come from Mobi, and people always talk about Mobi. Everywhere out of Kingston is country to Kingston people. So we talk a specific way. I come from Brooklyn. I have a Brooklyn style of speaking. But also, when you think of Bob, Bob is in the early stages of, Bob is a Rastafarian, and a Rastafarian has some Rastafarian speak. Them have the I and I and the in and the, I for I, and all of these things that they change around for the language or for the religion. So if you are outside of Rastafarianism, Jamaican culture, it will all feel foreign and like you're not used to it. For most of us who grew up around, you know, you know, Even Chris, when Chris talks to me and Chris will say, Carrie, I don't appreciate because I don't hate. I appreciate love, with the make up words, you know, with the make up words. And so you have to really understand the concept and flow with Bob. Because the thing about Bob too, he's not a fast patois speaker. He's a slow speaker. But because he's deliberate and he's just like, Jah, Rastafari, and he's quoting Bible. And if you don't know the Bible, it go also feel very foreign. A lot of Bob songs, we can tell you which Bible verse and chapter them come from. So if you're not familiar with the Bible and him using changing eyes and use to the Rastafarian speak, plus the Jamaican, plus the other things, what he's saying is going to sound very foreign. So I like that you bring that up because language morphs and changes, but the very two important what's the word influences is Rastafarianism and the Bible, and the application of all of that mix up also contributes to this new language that he has that people may not be able to understand. We want to switch a little bit because I know say we have things to say, but Alexandria, I haven't heard you so much. So I know you had some things to say. Did we touch on what you did want to say yet? Talk to them.
Well, we did. I have a separate point, but I don't know if I should wait till now. Yes, Carrie.
No, bring it up.
No, bring it up.
Wait.
That's what I meant.
Me no like Chris Blackwell character. I don't business who want chat, who want fight about it. If you watch all of the Marley them documentary, like Carrie say 10 million documentary out there about Bob, it was giving very I think Kevin Costner in Hidden Figures when him go smash down the sitting. So I was like, where is this
Like,
white
we
savior
was in
complex
some
business? I was like, no, sir, cut it out right now because as was mentioned before, it didn't go into the whole breakup of Peter Tosh, the original Whalers sect with Peter and Bunny, and so there was the little defense, of Chris Blackwell in a conversation between Bob and Rita, and he was like, "No, man, hey," I was like, "Cut it out right there." But I mean, when you know a little bit, I think I have again to some of the earlier points. When you have a deeper understanding of the family's relationship with Chris Blackwell, fine if that is what you wanted to do stylistically, but it felt like very white savior complex to me.
Jen look like she wants to say something. You look like Jenna.
Yes, it goes back to the superhero like dad image thing. They don't even I was just watching something with Rowan, for instance, Rowan Marley, where he talked about, it's an interview from at least a year or two ago, where he spoke about when Bob
I saw
passed
it.
and Fidela and Rita were trying to get back, trying to get the rights for Bob, basically them against Jamaica at this point. And they asked Michael Jackson, and Michael Jackson said no, he'll buy it.
Fidela and Rita won.
Well, Rowan also said there's a hierarchy. Fidela's the eldest, so that's boss lady. Ziggy's the eldest son, boss man.
Wait, is it, you sure it's Sidela the sister or not Sidela the mother?
Sidela the sister.
The sister,
Okay.
she's the eldest child. So
No. When they said Rita and Sidela, I'm asking, are we sure if it's Rita and Sidela the mother?
No, Sidela the sister, because he said she was of age to go.
Okay.
Yeah, she was of age at the time. She was the only one that was of age. So her and Rita, Blackwell loaned them the money. So they have something in them that still looks at Blackwell like savior. And the whole movie, even in the interviews where Ziggy says, like, when they even mention like Kingsley Ben Adir's height and stuff like that, he's like, well, Bob was taught to us. I just saw a little boy that loved his daddy and have this image of his daddy in his head. That I feel like that is part of the reason why the movie didn't have, they didn't have full control, but I feel that's part of the reason why the movie didn't have as much substance as it could. Because Rita even used to tell the truth. When you watch Rita interviews, Rita is keeping it real about the situation with Bob. So it kind of feels watered down, it's childlike. It's a childlike view of this is my daddy and he was so great And your daddy was great, but your daddy was also a man, and you didn't show us the man like him as really human. It was like Bob Marley, the superhero.
All right. So we're going to end the episode right here and come back for our part two. So part two is only going to be on reels and rhythms. And so come back. We're going to finish the conversation. They go get festive, you know, because we done set the foundation at the film. We set the foundation of all who is involved, and we're going to go a little bit more and talk about the impact of the film, and just going forward what this means for the film in the Caribbean, because it says Tough Gang Film. So I want to know, them are gonna do more show or then just create a film company for this one film. So come back and listen to Reels and Rhythms for part two, and you'll come back and catch the crew. All right.